And one. Welcome back, listeners, to the Media Files podcast. Today it is your boy, Sergeant Survival, solo again, but we will have a all-together episode coming up soon. Like I said, holidays, all other stuff just gets in the way, but we will always at least try to make time to produce content that is obviously beneficial and entertaining. So that's the goal of today. So today I wanted to hop on real quick because I thought of something. And so there's two things I wanted to talk about real quick. Well, not real quick, but, just to kind of get off my chest and, just talk to you guys and see what you guys think about this. So I have two things I want to talk about. The first one is not related to what I found, but the second thing is related to that. The first thing is something or a conversation I had with the boys, and it's about the progression of characters and more so the storytelling of certain manga, manhwa, whatever it is you want to call it. Because there's a manhwa that I've been reading, or one that I was reading. I took some time away from it because I felt like I'm not saying it wasn't going anywhere, but I was kind of getting bored with it in some aspect. And I was like, kind of waiting for for things to get more exciting and more interesting. But ultimately, I was like, I'll just take a break from it. So there's a manhwa called Unordinary. And long story short, to give a quick synopsis of it, it's of a society where superpowers are obviously integrated into it. And everybody, the majority of society, has some form of power. And there we have the main character, to whom appears to have no powers, and being avid enjoyers of, fantastical stories of My Hero, anime, manga in general, just enjoyers of those type of mediums. We know that's not the case. This would not be an interesting story unless there was something more to this character than meets the eye. And as you read further on, you learn this guy has the most broken powers ever. But he was keeping his powers secret for a plethora of reasons, and definitely one of those reasons was was trauma, instigated, or something that has happened to him in the past. Now, with that said, as we are going along with this character, there are, he does have a best friend. She's like always coming to his rescue and helping him, trying to stick up for him, and seen as one of the most powerful students in their school, right? And, there's the typical pretty boy who's like, I'm the class or the, representative of everybody, but he doesn't really help this guy out that much. And then there's another girl, she can use healing powers. And it's like, she's like the perfect person, all this other stuff. And while this stuff is going on, like, this man gets beat up very frequently. Like, it's almost like a daily occurrence. And all of this leads up, like, these are quite a few chapters that lead up to this. But eventually he snaps and he's like, yo, I'm going to stop being the good guy. Stop acting like I don't have any powers, and I'm going to, I'm going to show what's up. And as a reader, you're like excited because you're like, okay, this is the payoff for this guy getting beat up, trashed, like everything's going wrong for him, and he finally shows some backbone. Now, the reason why I took a break from this is because of what happens next with this story. You guys let me know what you think about this. But long story short, he, basically is going around like showing these guys who let this stuff happen the hypocrisy that comes from stating, I'm for everyone, but I will, overlook stuff like this happening. Or, like, I think the one I'm trying to remember the story. It's been a minute since I've read it, but I know the gist of it. And I remember this part, these parts specifically because that's what kind of turned me off the series. But long story short, the one girl who's able to heal is like, why are you doing this? This isn't right and all the other stuff. And he's like, but you never helped me when I needed it. Like, you guys always talk about being the top of your class and helping everyone and, being a good leader. But that's only when it's convenient for you. And, it's like that worked perfectly for me. But the problem with what happened, and again, this is just me. Anybody else may have had a different interpretation or feeling towards this. But they kept harping on this point of telling the main character, like, dude, you're going too far. You're messed up. There's something wrong with you. Versus the number of times that these two guys and everyone else has been reprimanded for all the stuff they've done to him. So to me, it kind of felt like, yo, this sounds weird. Like, you're harboring you're pointing this out and it's happening so many times. Like, the number of chapters that came after that point that just kept pointing and saying this guy is terrible. You're the worst. You're the scum of the earth because you are actually standing up for yourself and you're tired of being picked on because nobody else was coming to your rescue and helping you aside from your best friend. And that even got on my nerves when the best friend was saying it. And I get it. Like, you go to a point like you don't want them to go off the deep edge. But again, it's even more frustrating when it's like, yo, you guys weren't even like boring this point home with everybody else. So why is it happening so much with the main character? Like, dude, this guy hasn't really done as much as some of these other kids have probably done and are doing. So that just rubbed me the wrong way. Again, other people may have different interpretations or feel that it was fine. But I felt like, for me, the lesson was like overused, or it was so repetitive that I was like, I get it. I get the point. Like, can we move on? And that is a storytelling element that I don't like in some stories because it comes off as, I don't want to say preachy, but it comes off as I'm trying to make a point, and I'm going to keep making that point as many times as I feel like I need to. But I felt I was like, okay, I get the point. Okay, I get the point. And I was like, okay, I'm done. And again, that's just me. And maybe it was also because I was reading other stuff. I was reading Solo Leveling at the time. And I think I was catching up with One Punch Man. And, I have all this stuff adjacent to what I'm currently reading. And it just it feels less and less impactful to me. Because I read past that point, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's heading in a good direction now. But it just, it felt like it wasn't really able to pick up much steam afterward. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'll come back to this at some other point. Maybe I'll feel differently. But I do kind of feel like when that happens in stories, it kind of takes me out of the mood a little bit. Now, is Unordinary a bad manga? No. But there are, like, even with like mainstream series, there are things that take me out of that series. For example, key example for me is Super. Like, I have stated my love for Dragon Ball. I remember watching Dragon Ball Z as a kid on Toonami, watching Dragon Ball GT on Cartoon Network. Like, I have Dragon Ball GT on DVD, even though that was a gift from Venom. And at first I wasn't like too much into GT, but when Super came around, I was like, you know what? Am I just being unfair to, if I have these gripes with Super, am I going to have the same gripes with GT? And GT is not perfect. Dragon Ball within itself is not perfect. Like, we have all these grand misconceptions of characters. You know, we will say this about a character, we'll do this about a character. Like, the whole misconception of, and, you know, we will make jokes about it, but Goku being a terrible dad because he's always gone and doing stuff. And I'm like, I sit there and I think to myself, okay, let's validate that claim, right? So he was there, he was present when Gohan was born. He was still there doing everything, raising him and all the good stuff. Then what happened? His brother came and said, yo, Kakarot, you're weak. I'm taking your son with me. If you want him back, come and fight me. Okay. Goku joins arms with his mortal nemesis, Piccolo, to go fight this dude to get his son back safely. Right? When they find out they can't do much to this guy, Goku's like, okay, the only thing I can do is sacrifice myself to save my friends and my son. Goku does that. He dies. That's the first instance that Goku is gone because he's literally dead. Okay. I don't think that makes you a bad dad. I think that makes you a wonderful dad. Let's see. Let's move on to the next time. So he comes back to life. What is the first thing Goku does? He runs to save his son. Bam. And he's there. And even when it's time to fight Vegeta, he says, Gohan, Krillin, go off somewhere else and I will handle this. This is too dangerous. Sounds like a good dad to me. And then when Goku was so beat up that he couldn't go to Namek, he didn't force Gohan or Krillin to go and make that decision. They said, you know, Krillin originally was going to be Krillin and Bulma, but then they were like, Gohan was like, I need to go because Piccolo died saving me. Okay. So they went off to Namek, and as soon as Goku was better, he followed suit, right? As soon as he lands, he runs off to save everybody again. Keep his son and Krillin and then they safe, right? And then he gets injured again because he's jumping into battle and doing everything he can to protect everyone and so on and so forth. We go this whole time where Goku is jumping in front of everyone, trying to protect everyone from the dangers that have preceded him. Skip forward. Now we're in the Android saga. Where's Goku? Everyone thought he was dead, but he actually managed to make it off of Namek before it got destroyed. He somehow managed to get to another planet and was able to make his way back to Earth. And people are like, well, that shows he's a bad dad because why did it take him so long to get back there? Well, let's see. How long did it take them to get from Earth to Namek? That was not that wasn't a one-day trip. That was multiple days. Like, I don't remember exactly how long it was, but it was long, right? And even when it was like Vegeta and Nappa were heading to Earth, it took them a long time to get there. And even when it's like, oh, you knew instant transmission, his instant transmission was limited to where he could go and how he could use it. He wasn't able to instant transmission between planets. There are limitations to the things that, even though they're Saiyans, there are limitations to what they can do. Okay, so he gets there. The threat is already done because Trunks shows up. Cool. Goku goes back living with his family. Everyone's happy. Everything's good. But the problem is Trunks shows up and says, hey, there's a danger coming that you guys have to prepare for. So they train for that. That wasn't Goku's fault. That was literally Trunks coming back in time saying, hey, all you guys are going to get killed, so you need to train to counter it. Okay? They all train. Goku is living with his family at this time. They go to the city. They get attacked. Goku comes down with the virus, right? So that entire time Goku is recovering, everyone else is having to do everything without him. They have to because he's sick. But he does get better. And immediately is like, yo, we have to get stronger. Let's figure this out. And he decides to go in the hyperbolic time chamber with his son in order to teach him how to be stronger and overcome his weaknesses. Sounds like a good dad to me. He could have pushed Gohan in there and said, or he could have said, Gohan, you wait out here. I'll go in the hyperbolic time chamber, train on my own because you're going to hold me back. He didn't do that. He said, Gohan, you and me are getting stronger together. During that time, Goku realized that Gohan was stronger than he ever would be. So then we jump forward to the Perfect Cell games. Goku goes first and he's like, I'm going to test this guy out so you can know what you're up against. You know, he does his best, but he recognizes that he's not going to be able to beat him. So he says, Gohan, you're up. He heals cells and everyone's like, Goku's so dumb. He makes the dumbest decisions. Anybody can understand why he did that. If you actually like stop and think. Here's the thing. People like to just follow what other people say without actually giving it some thought. We're not lemmings. We're not sheep. We are all able to have our own perspectives and our own understanding of things. So my understanding of that moment as a kid was that Goku wanted Gohan to beat Cell, but of his own power. Because if Goku wailed on Cell and it's like Gohan easily just comes up and just punches him and he's dead, he's going to have in the back of his mind that his father saved him again. He can't do anything without his dad. And the whole point of what Gohan or Goku was always trying to teach Gohan was you need to be strong on your own. I'm not always going to be around to save you. And that's a good point. Everybody's parents should raise them in that way. I'm not always going to be there to pull you out of trouble. You need to be able to get yourself out of trouble. Protect the people that are important to you. So he healed up Cell and gave Gohan an opportunity to say, hey, I can do this without my dad's help. Now, did he was there a price to pay for it? Yes, everyone got beat up because Cell was trying to get Gohan angry. And, everyone else was like, Goku, are you crazy? But Goku knew that he could not beat Cell. Gohan was the only person who could beat Cell. Even Vegeta was useless. Not useless, but he did not measure up to that power where he could fight him on his own. Because remember, guys, this is a tournament, a one against another tournament, as in everyone only got to fight Cell one-on-one. It wasn't like, hey, guys, let's gang up on Frieza. No, it was one person versus Cell at a time. Gohan at that moment in time was the only one with the potential to rise above Super Saiyan, break into Super Saiyan 2, and really give Cell a run for his money. And of course, when Gohan got a little too big for his britches and he's like, dang, I messed up, Goku stepped in as a good dad should, took on his son's mistake and said, hey, everything's okay. You did the best that you could. Leave it to me. Goes off and he dies. Best Dad Award. Okay? Now, even at the end of the saga, they were like, let's wish Goku back. Goku says no. Why did he say no? Because he said that the reason why a lot of threats were coming to the Earth was because of him. Why did Frieza come back to the Earth? Because Goku. Cell was looking for the perfect or the greatest match ever. He was looking for Goku. Ultimately, and even the androids, they were looking to kill Goku. Everybody had issues with Goku. So Goku was like, yo, it's probably better if I just stay dead this time. At least this way you guys are safe. Okay. Fast forward to the Majin Buu saga. And Goku actually gets, because of all the good that he's done, he gets an opportunity to come to Earth for one day. And I think that's good. It's not necessarily saying, oh, he's coming back to life. Because when he did come back to life, there were problems. But you get what I'm saying? Like, he spent time with his family. It's like, it was heartwarming. And one of the issues that came out of Goku coming back was Majin Vegeta. one of the coolest forms Vegeta's ever had, but was a product of Goku coming back and Vegeta getting a chance to fight him again. So, yeah. Goku does everything he can, but he knows that with limited time, he can only do so much to stall Majin Buu. So, overall, Goku has done everything he can for the Earth and for his family. Now, the issue comes in where we follow or where we go past Dragon Ball Z. Because in GT, we have where Goku is training Oob. Because the prospect of a new guardian for Earth is no longer on Gohan, it's more so for Oob. And let's not forget that in that, Goku gets turned into a kid again. The whole rap. I love that rap. I listened to it the other day and I was like, dang, I used to love this as a kid. Not necessarily now, but I'm like, it's nostalgic. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's a bop, like you hear, you're like, oh, I remember that. It was so weird for but long story short, there was this deviation to where Goku was now forced to do something to where he had to protect the Earth and protect all of his family and friends, and was separated from them to go off and do what he needed to do. Right? Left with Trunks and Pan. And we have other issues, and one of the greatest forms in all of Dragon Ball, Super Saiyan 4, because we all tend to forget that they are literal Saiyans who are capable of turning into giant monkeys. And it's like, wow, this is weird. Why would he turn into... They are literal aliens who have the capability to turn into a monkey because they have a tail. Like, that was a mainstay problem in ever since Dragon Ball. Because Goku accidentally looked at the moon when they were trapped in Pilaf's castle, turned into this giant ape, and they learned that his grandfather was killed by Goku. Goku learns that later on when he's fighting Vegeta. Because it's like, oh, he can transform into an ape too. Right? And Gohan didn't learn that he could do that either until Piccolo, because he was like, oh, we always go to bed early, so I never get to see the moon. So again, there's this deviation, but it still remains that he's a good dad. And then we get to Super. And as I said, with GT, I had a lot of qualms with it because of the direction of the series. Baby as a villain was good. If the Dragon Balls just had Omega Shenron, it would be even better. Having all the other ones, like every single one of them was not necessary. Oceanus was cool. Ice Shenron and Sin Shenron. Yeah. Those guys were pretty cool. But the other ones, I got the idea. It was like, you used the Dragon Balls, you depended on the Dragon Balls so much that now you have to, pay for your actions, pay for your reliance on the Dragon Balls to fix everything that's going on or that has happened in your life. So because of that, there's this consequence that you're literally fighting, new enemies that are pretty strong. They can throw hands. And I think the ideal is good, but the execution could have been way better. Baby Vegeta is probably one of my favorite villains out of that entire series. Some of the planets they visited, sure. Like the overall direction of the story wasn't my favorite. But I did watch it all the way through. With Super, I started it up until the Tournament of Power. And, there was all the hype and everything. But as it continued, I was like, I'm not really into it as much. Especially as they went into the Future Saga. Because now we're talking about this shift of where Goku is now just like Vegeta was. Because in the beginning, remember, when Vegeta was on Earth, he spent all of his time training no matter what. It wasn't until, he had a son that he started to calm down and be like, okay, I need to be a family man. But Goku already had that, and he was doing that. But now it's kind of like, okay, now we have the God of Destruction and Whis who are willing to train us. So, hey, Chi-Chi, I'm leaving to go train all the time. You're cool with that, right? Now, remember, the driving forces in Dragon Ball Z was that they were training because there was a threat. The difference between the two is that, just let's use the Cell Saga as an example. Why was Goku and Gohan training? Because Cell was a threat and he had the tournament set up and saying, hey, if you guys can't beat me, I'm destroying the whole Earth. That sounds pretty extreme to me. But now we have it to where they're just training because they just want to get stronger. There's a difference between those two like the two motivations there, right? One, as in there is an immediate threat and there is a goal that we have to accomplish. There isn't just this like everyone, like I think Gohan after the Cell Saga was so like defeated as a character. Because yes, Gohan was the most adjusted out of all the Z fighters. Like he had a job, he knew how to fight. He was stronger, way stronger than the average man. So he didn't have to worry about safety or anything like that. And he could fight against threats if he needed to, right? Vegeta didn't need to worry about that because Bulma's rich. She's loaded. Goku, they lived off the land because there are literal dinosaurs roaming around. Plenty of meat and food to eat. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, but after that, it was like failure after failure. And it's the character, like his character went downhill. Especially during the Buu saga, got a little bit of a lift once he went ultimate or mystic, however you want to call it. But overall, especially after that, man, was Gohan just thrown to the wayside. He could have been a way better character, right? But again, the motivation between the two, again, is that there's an immediate threat versus there's probably no threat at all. We're just training because we want to, right? That signifies being a bad dad to me. Like, yo, I got my own things I want to do. You guys, Chi-Chi, you keep the household and I'll go do what I want to do, hang out with my boys every day for the next couple of years. Right? Versus, hey, there's a threat that I need to get rid of. Like, one of the craziest things I remember from the Cell Saga was when Goku and Chi-Chi kissed. And it was like, like they didn't show it, but it was like even Master Roshi like turned around and I was like, whoa, everyone jokes because like in the Saiyan saga, you see them like, with, Goku with Chi-Chi and Gohan, like Gohan being a baby and all this other stuff going on, right? In the Cell saga, you see them being affectionate. And even in the Buu saga, you see them like there's this genuine love and interaction that comes between Goku, Chi-Chi, Gohan, and Goten. Like there's this love for his family. And then it's like, yeah, no, I'm going to throw all that out the window because I just want to be stronger for no reason at all. Like just so I can, beat or be strong enough to fight Lord Beerus. Because again, Beerus is not a threat, remember? Beerus is not a threat in Super. He's just the god of destruction. And let's also not forget that Goku's also best friends with Zeno, who could literally erase Beerus at the snap of a finger. So that doesn't even matter anymore. So, yeah. But long story short, the idea for me was that the motivation between the two things are vastly different. And you guys might be like, well, he was, training for the next threat or training for this threat. But again, the motivation between the two and the stakes are way different. Because I can easily point to what danger are they really in when you're literally buddy with the strongest being in that galaxy, Beerus, his teacher, who is vastly stronger than him, Whis. You have the literal god that he has on speed dial. He can press a button and Zeno shows up. Solves all your problems. What threats do you have? You have all those things. You have all those pros. I always like to think of it as a balance. How many pros do you have versus cons here, right? So let's measure the two. So in Super, at this point in time, Goku has Beerus, Whis. There are 2 Zenos, mind you. He has other people from other galaxies who are strong or just as strong to where he could probably get help from them. Those are 4 great things for him, right? And I'm not talking about Z fighters. I'm talking about people who can immediately solve a problem if they ran into one. Beerus, Whis, 2 Zenos. 2 gods, right? So if Goku pressed that button, instant solution. Bam, boom, blam. Let's go to the Cell Saga, right? Perfect Cell. Who can immediately solve their problem? No one. They can't make a wish because the creator of the Dragon Balls is weaker than Cell. So the dragon can't kill him. Okay? They didn't know fusion. No one in the other world was strong enough to actually take on Perfect Cell either. There was no lifeline. The point is, and here's where I kind of just fell off with Super, was there are too many positives in Goku's corner versus negatives working against him. This is how a story is told. Viewers, listeners, when there are stakes in a story, what makes them stakes is that, okay, there's so many disadvantages against the main character versus advantages. Right? And I could spin this and I'll give examples just so I'm not sounding crazy, right? So I already used Dragon Ball as an example. So let's use Naruto, right? So let's go with Naruto's first big mission, right? With Team 7. It's him, Sakura, Sasuke, and Kakashi, and the guy, I forget his name, the bridge builder that they're escorting, right? So Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, and an escort. Or the client, the person they're protecting, right? Zabuza shows up out of nowhere. He's like, yo, I was hired to kill that man behind you. Kakashi's like, nah, bruh, you got to get through me. So at this time, it is Kakashi, the only Jonin, so the only person capable of fighting Zabuza. You have 3 Genin who have not even had battle experience or that much or fought anyone, and a guy who's basically useless because he needs to be protected. So they fail if the escort is killed, right? So Kakashi jumps in there, right? He's like, yeah, we're like, yeah, Kakashi. But then what happens? So again, the pros are on Team 7 side is that they have a Jonin, Kakashi, the only person who is able to solve this problem, right? But he also has 3 other people who are able to keep watch over the other guy to keep him safe. So the pros are more so in their favor, and it's just Zabuza by himself. But Zabuza is strong and a dangerous man. Okay. But then Kakashi gets captured by the same man he's fighting, and he can't get out. So now the disadvantages are so in their court, right? Again, we can list them. Number 1, 3 genin that don't have battle experience. Number 2, they have an escort they have to protect. And number 3, the only person who was able to actually stand a chance against him is now his captive. And Zabuza holds the cards. So there's 3 disadvantages for them and 1 advantage for the bad guy. Because all he has to do to win is kill the escort. He doesn't even have to bother with Naruto, Sakura, or Sasuke. Right? So, you recognize the stakes and you recognize how dangerous Zabuza is. And that is what makes the fight so tense. Because Zabuza is strong enough to just kill all of them right away. So it takes Naruto and Sasuke to work together just to free Kakashi. And then Kakashi does, his Sharingan warrior thing and everything's solved, right? Cool. So we move on to the next fight, right? Fight on the bridge. It is again Kakashi versus Zabuza. Well, it's Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura, because Naruto exhausted himself from, the tree training. But now it's Haku and Zabuza, so he has one more person. So then Sasuke takes Haku somewhere and they fight. Kakashi fights with Zabuza, but Zabuza has a little bit more knowledge. So Kakashi isn't necessarily at a deadly disadvantage, but Kakashi has to work a little bit harder this time to fight, right? And Sakura is, of course, protecting the civilian. So we don't realize the disadvantage that Sasuke has against Haku until he shows, yeah, I'm faster than you. There's no way you can overcome me in speed. And his weird techniques and his bloodline, Kekkei Genkai, and you're like, yo, this guy is serious. So the stakes are stacked against him. And then Naruto shows up. And then it's you have this guy who's able to move in between mirrors, 1. He is able to throw needles and hit pressure points that can instantly kill you or immobilize you. 3, he's too fast to counter. And number 4, you don't have enough firepower or the skills to combat him. Literally, it took Sasuke, quote unquote, dying for Naruto to be like, yo, Nine-Tailed Fox, do something. And bam, boom, blam, everything's solved. One of the coolest, moments in the beginning of Naruto, in my opinion. And a lot of people will agree because, bro, when that happened, we were drawing that scene so much. But the point of the matter is, what we have are the stakes, and then we have, the pros and the cons. What's working against us and what is working with us. That makes a compelling fight, right? Okay, let's move on to another one. Just to keep it fair. I don't want anyone to think I'm just using one example to state my point. Let's move to what's another good one? Again, I'm trying to pull from very popular or well-known examples because everyone knows Naruto. Ooh, excuse me. I'm trying to think. I kind of want to say, trying to think here. Okay, I'll do one from One Piece and I will do another one from Bleach just to cap this point off so I can move on to the next one. But Luffy versus Crocodile, right? So we move on. Let's say the first fight, right? The first actual fight between the two. The disadvantages in Luffy's corner, right? Everybody had already escaped. It's just him and Crocodile. We don't know much about him. All we know is he is a warlord of the sea, and that makes him really strong, right? So the first disadvantage for Luffy is he doesn't know much about what this guy can do, right? Number 2, it's 2 of them. It's him and Nico Robin. Okay. And number 3, he is in a literal desert, the very power that Crocodile has. So those are 3 things against him. So there's no tipping the scales here. And if he did beat him, it would have been like, yo, where did that come from? It wasn't until he figured out some things that the actual fight began to tip in his favor. And that's why those are like some of my favorite fights, because the second fight between them is where Luffy learns that if you use water, you can, like, just like how you make mud, it makes it solid. So it's the, state changes. Add water to, this loose soil and it turns into a solid. So that means you can hit it. So when he figures that out, he's able to literally harm this guy. So now Crocodile. So again, Luffy is more familiar with his abilities. He has a counter against it, but he also has to be able to make use of his devil fruit more creatively. So those are three things that he has going for him. But the other problem, again, is that Crocodile also has the power to absorb moisture just by touching you. So that's really the biggest problem, is that Luffy only has a limited amount of water, but Crocodile has a limitless source of sand. Okay? So Crocodile still manages to kind of, work his way to drain Luffy of, the moisture in his body, but Luffy's able to, get it back. So then now we get to the underground, and Luffy's throwing hands with him, and he's like, yo, you don't have any water. How are you hitting me? He's using his blood, which is another liquid. Reckless way of doing it, but it makes sense. Still does the same stuff, right? Now, with that fight, once Crocodile has lost that advantage, again, Luffy is aware of his ability to drain moisture from his body, so he's being wary of that. And Crocodile recognizes that too. So Crocodile introduces his poison hook. That's like, yo, if I hit you with this, you're more than likely going to die. Okay, so now Luffy has time against him because the place is crumbling. He has like literally 2 injured people to try to take care of. He's losing blood constantly, and the opponent still has fight in him and has a poison hook. Now, granted, he does get hit with it, but he's able to at least try to fight through it because it still affects him. But there's a cure for it, and Nico Robin has it. So, okay, that fight makes sense because the stakes were preferably against him. But as the fights progressed, he learned how to turn those negatives into a positive, which is why that fight is so brilliant to me. Now, let's think of another one here. So, okay, CP9, Water 7. When Luffy first fights Bluno, right? So when he first fights him, he's not aware of the Path of Six Powers abilities. So Luffy doesn't know their abilities. Again, an unknown factor. 2, he's trying to get Nico Robin back, but there's multiple people on the other side. So there's multiple of them and only him and Zoro. So it's like, okay, we're at a disadvantage. And obviously they lose. When Luffy fights Bluno again, he's like, okay, now I know, again, it's the same pattern. It's he loses once, and when he comes back, he learns from his mistakes. Just like how any fight should be, right? You weigh your options because the unknown is what gets you every single time. But if you can take that unknown and flip it into a positive, you are able to make it work. So when he fought Bluno again, he knew what he was capable of. He knew how to counter it if he focused and, actually did the counters correctly. And he had a means to overwhelm the opponent if it came to that point. Easy enough. And then we go to the fight with Lucci, right? So remember, he still knows what they're capable of. But the problem is with Lucci is that he also has a devil fruit. Well, all of them have devil fruits. Let me stop. Bluno has the Dordor fruit, which is, I think, kind of interesting. But okay. use it however. And I do love that about One Piece too, the creative uses of the devil fruits. It's kind of like My Hero, but the creativity is what's really good and what shines there. But with Lucci, he has a Zoan type fruit, right? And Zoans are tanky. And I'm so sick and tired of people saying, oh, you know, Zoans aren't that great, or like, oh, and I'm like, bro, Zoans are able to tank everything. Like, they're able to take so much damage. And it's like a bomb is not enough to kill them. Like, it probably will knock them unconscious, but it won't kill them. As we've seen a lot of times, like we're always like Logias are overpowered and Paramecia are like the bottom of the barrel. But again, everything has its counter, right? Hockey is one of those things, because if it's hockey, it can override any devil fruit power and just go straight to the human, because that's what it is. Every person is still a human being. They just have that devil fruit that makes them stronger in terms of, you know. So in this fight, again, Luffy is still figuring out who Lucci is and how he fights. And what we quickly understand is that Lucci is a step above Luffy in a lot of ways, in speed and power and versatility. And then when Luffy, or like when Lucci goes to his, like uses his devil fruit, Luffy goes to his next state, right? Now, again, remember, the whole point of that power is to overwhelm the opponent with quick action, as in time is against you, right? But Lucci is a Zoan type, so time is what he can create because his body can take it. And he also has Iron Body, which also lengthens that time as well. So we're like, okay, so you have Luffy who has to quickly resolve this problem because A, this new power is draining him, and B, the more time he takes, the more they are closer to danger and the more reinforcements that are going to show up, right? So throughout this whole fight, like, he's doing everything he can just to try to stay a step above Lucci. And Lucci also has specialized techniques in order to counter Luffy's rubber body, like the finger pistol. That's very effective. And if you have long, sharp nails on that pistol, it makes it even more deadly, right? So there are these, things that are occurring that are like, okay, this is a genuine stakes fight, as in both parties have something to lose and the odds are stacked against the main character. Okay, that is an understandable, undeniable fight that shows those stakes properly. Now let's go to Bleach. Bleach, here we come. So let's talk about trying to think of a good example. I wanted to use the whole thing with Ichigo and Ukiura, if that's how you say it. I can never pronounce their names that well. But long story short, I wanted to use that. Maybe I will. Yeah, just to make a point. Make it simple. But the whole thing with Ichigo and this guy, the final boss, let's just say that, was that a lot of what we knew of Ukiura was that we haven't seen him fight seriously. It was everybody else fighting and them getting defeated and him being the last one, even though he wasn't the strongest, right? He wasn't like the lowest number. But what we have is Ichigo trying to protect Orihime. So that's one thing against him. Number two, the unknown of how strong Ukiura actually is. And number three, being in enemy territory. Time is of the essence, right? So Ichigo pulls out the stops, pulls out his hollow mask, and like, fighting. Ukiura stops him immediately and is like, bam. This man wasted no time blowing a hole in his chest. That is savage, right? The stakes are pretty high now. Ichigo, you have a hole in your chest. This isn't like the hole that dude used a laser beam and shot through Goku. No, this is a literal hole. Even the hole that Goku received from the special beam cannon was bigger than that laser. I'm just saying. Anywho, aside from my passive aggressive rants, he had a hole in his chest, and Orihime was doing everything she could to heal this dude. It was too late. But somehow the power within him transformed him into a monster. One of the coolest moments in Bleach, right? And he quickly starts to overwhelm Ulquiorra, even though he goes on to another stage. Now, again, that fight is cool. Don't get me wrong. But the stakes are improperly balanced for that, right? Because in the twist of fates, the stakes are no longer against Ichigo, right? Because Uryu shows up to protect Orihime, right? But Ichigo doesn't care about that anymore. All he cares about is killing the opponent in front of him, right? So the stakes are no longer an issue when your only objective is to fight. And that's how it is with, Ichigo at this point. My whole goal is to mess this guy up. And he does. He kills him. Well, no, he does. He does kill him, but it is a long death. You know what I'm saying? But yeah. So in that fight, I feel like the way the stakes kind of shifted is, it could have been done better. Because if we want to use an example, just like even with One Piece, or let's go with Dragon Ball, just to kind of wrap this whole point up and move on to the next point or the next topic, which I'm feeling like, we'll go through it. But Goku versus Frieza, right? Goku is like losing. People are dying. Krillin just got killed. And Goku has to figure out how to protect everyone else. He loses his mind and goes Super Saiyan, right? So now Goku has the upper hand because Gohan and Piccolo have escaped. So Frieza can't use anyone else against Goku. And Frieza's like, yo, this man is cooking me. So what does Frieza do? He's like, I'm going to blow this entire planet up. Because Frieza can breathe in outer space. Saiyans can't. Which is still very interesting to me. But, whatever. I don't make the rules. I just talk about them. So that means that there is now a time limit on a planet exploding. And Goku is not necessarily thinking, like, I just need to kill this guy and leave. He's like, I need to prove to you that I am the strongest. That no matter what you do, Frieza, you cannot beat me. Which he didn't. Goku won. But the stakes are still somewhat introduced into the story, right? So Goku no longer has stakes against him. But now Frieza, being the tactician that he is, he's like, all right, cool. You're stronger than me, so I'm going to introduce a new unknown factor. I'm going to destroy this planet. When this planet is destroyed, we both can survive, but only I can survive in outer space. That's a good point. That is a good plan. So all Frieza has to do is tough it out. Frieza knows that he can't outrun him. So he's just going to have to beat him up, stall for time, and do everything he can to keep him from dying. Right? So, okay, cool. So Goku is now not just fighting Frieza, but fighting against the clock. And even when, they wish everyone off of the planet, Goku's like, no, I need to kill this guy now because he knows he can survive. And if he survives, he's going to come back. So I need to make sure this is done. So now he's in an unfavorable position where they can't use the Dragon Balls to save him. He has a planet that's about to explode and a really powerful enemy that he has to defeat. That is how those stakes can be reintroduced into a fight as it progresses. With Ichigo versus Ulquiorra, it was more so like Ulquiorra just, bam, hole in your chest. Not even a fight. And instead of there being a progression, it's like, nah, he just becomes so overpowered that Ukiura has no chance against him. Because even when Naruto first went Nine-Tail form against Haku, Haku still somewhat had a fighting chance, right? He was still able to hit Naruto. It was just, Naruto is suddenly gotten faster and stronger. And as the fight progressed, Haku realized that what he was doing was no longer safe. Like, I can't hit his pressure points anymore because he's literally able to just reset. Like when he threw all those needles into Naruto's back, he just like pumps them out and is like, bam. He throws his needles and Naruto can roar and stop him. He retreats into a mirror and Naruto has enough power to just break them. So his plan is slowly falling apart. And it's like, okay, if he was able to rethink of a plan, maybe the fight could have changed, right? But it's that sudden change and like, I'm dominating this fight. And now he's dominating it. Those are two vastly different, because Haku still fought back. And it's like, okay, you are strong, but I'm still able to do something. And the fight didn't even end there, right? Because Haku was still alive. Because Naruto got back control because he realized who he was fighting. Ukiura, it was like, nah, this man is dying. Like, Ichigo is killing this dude. There is no ifs, buts, or whats about it. So, yeah. Long story short, I don't even remember the original purpose of this, but, the stakes. So with Super, that is what really pushed me off, because it was like, the stakes are not really against the, Goku, who is the main character. Even Vegeta, he still has access to Beerus and Whis. He is not chummy with Zeno necessarily, but he still has access to those guys. And don't say, Whis only rewound the earth once. Don't do that. Never do something you're not willing to defend, right? Do not do something in a story you are not willing to defend. Because if you say Whis was able to rewind time to, basically say everything that happened didn't happen, right? Because even in the Super Broly movie, Whis was stalling for time for Goku and Vegeta. No one else could have done that. Everybody else would have been hit once and dead. But Whis is just dodging, having fun. And it's like, how different would that movie be if Whis or Beerus were not a factor? Anywho, that's how you build it. And because those stakes, or because those pros, again, outweigh the cons in whatever situation. Unless there's literally someone who can kill Zeno, there are no stakes in Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Super from here on out. So that's why I don't read it. But what I wanted to talk about here is this. If I can get it to pull up. There we go. So I watch this video sometimes to get ideas for topics. And the one I want to talk about is this. Are live action anime adaptations useless? Now, I have my own points with this, and I have my own particular reasons, of course. But live action anime adaptations are interesting to me, because there's two problems here, right? Number one, these remakes are only being made for stories that have an established fan base, and those fans were made off of the anime. Because the two examples you saw there was One Piece and Attack on Titan, right? Both of those have anime. This is not like reading a book and them saying, hey, we're going to make a movie out of that book. And you're like, yo, really? Because I love this book. That's way different. Because there's already an established medium showcasing the manga in anime, cartoon, whatever form you want to say. So I have particular reason for not liking the One Piece remake. Not saying that it's not well done, not saying that it's not good. What I'm saying is I don't like it because it's not necessary. Useless is definitely a strong term, but I think unnecessary is better. Why? Let's sit back for a second, right? You go on Crunchyroll, and 9 times out of 10, advertisement will show either Dragon Ball Z or Dragon Ball Super, whatever. They're going to show One Piece. They're going to show Naruto or Boruto, or something that is currently getting, or that is currently popular, right? Since I have been a kid, One Piece, Dragon Ball, Naruto were the big three, and those three dominated all of media. As in, there were video games, there were movies, there were card games, there were this, there were that, there were toys, there were merchandise. All this stuff centered towards those three properties, right? And why is that? Because those will make the most money. See, my problem is that this kind of goes back to my point of why we can't let series die, or why we won't let series die. A lot of time it isn't the fans who do it, it's the corporations, right? So let me ask you this question. If Dragon Ball Z ended at the Buu saga and we had nothing more after that, do you believe we would have games like Dragon Ball Z Fighters? I think so. Would we have games like Zero? Probably, yeah. Do you think, however, that games like Xenoverse 2 would be around as long as it was if the anime stopped there? No. What keeps these games and these properties alive is the fact that there is more and more material being introduced to it. I said at a previous time that I stopped playing Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, which is another Bandai Namco property or video game. I stopped playing that because it's a money pit, one. And number two, as long as they continue to make content with Dragon Ball, it's never going away. And my other problem with it as well is that they're able to create their own original animations as well. So like one of the anniversaries, they had a Super Saiyan Blue Vegito that had his own original animation, and it looked good. Like, it was great. So that bears to mind, like, okay, these guys can take their own creative freedom and make their own new cards and animations and all this stuff and basically keep the train going for as long as they want, right? But eventually they'll run out of ideas. See, here's the thing. The more you produce something, the more you will run your resources dry. And when your resources run out, your inspiration and all this other stuff, what do you have left? Because here's the thing. There's Dragon Ball, Dokkan, and then there's Legends. When those games end, all of your money is gone. Because the games are only good while the servers are up. You get what I'm saying? Like, imagine if for Dokkan Battle, they're like, tomorrow, we're shutting it down. All the money you sank into that game is gone. All the anniversaries you've taken part of. The Halloween events, the Christmas events, the Black Friday sales, the anniversaries, bro. Anniversaries. Tabata. New Year's. April Fools. All that money you spent for the past couple of years into a game will disappear just like that. And what do you have to show for it? Nothing. So here's the deal. Those games would not last as long if the content wasn't there. Get what I'm saying? Same thing with Naruto. Will we have the current or the latest Naruto Ninja Storm if Naruto ended after the Great Ninja War? There's no Boruto, right? Or Shinobi Strikers. They're dragging that game out way too long, so maybe it would be. I don't know. I think they just introduced Naruto, like, like the younger version with Kyuubi. They just introduced that. Like, huh? They wouldn't last that long, right? And you're like, no, that's not true. Okay. Let me ask you guys this question. How many Demon Slayer games do you know of? I know of that one, the one fighting game. That didn't last very long, right? Didn't last that long at all. Demon Slayer only got like one game that I know of, right? They have collaborations and all that stuff, but I'm only counting solo games. As in the property is specifically for that. But Dragon Ball will get 50 more games after this, right? Naruto will get more games after this, right? All these things will continue to happen because those properties continue to exist and remain popular because the people who grew up with them are fond of those things. We're all fond of Dragon Ball because we grew up with it. I remember watching Toonami. I remember watching Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT, being overly zealous and drawing Super Saiyan 5000 in my notebook during class. I remember doing that. I remember drawing Naruto when he first went Kyuubi. I remember drawing that whole scene in my notebook because I was a kid and I love that type of stuff. I remember at one point being so into Naruto that I knew all the hand signs for different jutsus. You know, that sounds really cringe right now, but a lot of people did. That was the impact that anime had on us. And that's the crazy thing to me. This is why remakes don't make sense to me. Because here's the deal, people. When we were kids, we had other anime that had our attention as well. The only difference is those anime ended while these continued even past their prime. What am I talking about? We talked about on one of our first episodes, the Big O. I remember the Big O. Batman kind of guy with detective and, detective guy with a bunch of money. And when things get a little out of hand, he jumps into a giant robot. Glorious plot. It's beautiful. Where's the Big O remake? Huh? That would be cool live action. What about Gundam? Live action remake where? Oh, I'm not going to get it, right? Inuyasha? Where that? Now, they did make an animated remake of Fooly Cooly, but from what I heard, it wasn't really that good, and I wasn't necessarily looking for it. Fooly Cooly was one of those niche anime that was like, okay. Like Dead Man Wonderland or Paranoia Agent from back in the day. You had to just like it, you know? Even with Death Note, like that Death Note game that just came out, I'm like, only people who grew up with it will know what it really is or who enjoyed it up until that point. Even Full Metal Alchemist. I'm like, listen, there's so many more properties out there, but my problem with a lot of these remakes is that it only focuses on mainstream stories that have a huge fan base, right? So why are we saying that these remakes are necessary? So let's draw a conclusion here, right? We're saying that One Piece needs a live action adaptation, right? Starting from the first episode. Even though we have the anime that is still ongoing, the manga which is still ongoing and does not seem to have an end in sight, but we need a remake for that, right? No, we don't, but you want more money. That's the only way I see it as. One Piece is an established property. It is popular. You do not have to do more to make it popular. You don't need new fans because you got the old ones who are willing to pay a lot of money and give you their attention just for saying One Piece. Same with Dragon Ball. Everybody was salivating at the mouth when Sparking Zero was announced. You didn't have to coerce anyone to buy it. The player base is not what it was when the hype, when it first originated. I was so ready for it that I didn't watch any gameplay or any spoilers from any of the YouTubers I watch. I was like, I'm going into it to enjoy it as it is. hopped into it. I was like, oh, okay, this looks, this reminds me of Budokai Tenkaichi. But then I played the story mode. And I'm like, this is butt cheeks. Because I skipped around so much. Like, here was my biggest gripe. I was like, why is it that I skipped so many fights? Excuse me. Why is it that I skipped so many fights between the Saiyan saga all the way to the Buu saga? But as soon as I get to the Future saga, or even the Tournament of Power, I'm fighting every single person that Goku has fought. Every single person. And then when I get into the Future Saga, I'm fighting Goku Black 5 times and I'm fighting Zamasu 10 times. But I couldn't fight the Ginyu Force. I couldn't fight Raccoon, who is a playable character. I couldn't fight, again, listen. The point all comes down to these titles require very little advertisement. All Bandai Namco has to say is, oh, we're coming out with Fighters 2, or whoever created it. We're coming out with Fighters 2, and people are salivating at the mouth waiting for footage. You will have the most views ever if you produce an anime game of Dragon Ball, Naruto, One Piece. There is a Bleach game coming out, but I've always felt that Bleach hasn't always had the same notoriety. And I said this in a previous episode that I felt that Bleach was just kind of like Inuyasha to me. Like, big swords, supernatural beings, all that other stuff. But, sure, whatever. But yeah, we're moving, just keep moving. The point is that a lot of times these remakes are used to capitalize on a fan base that exists. We can even say that with, video game adaptations. Why do we need a Last of Us TV show? Oh, it's so we can introduce it to other people who don't play video games. Okay, that doesn't make sense because the only people who would watch the show are people who have played the game and know of The Last of Us. You guys get what I'm saying? That's almost like if they were to say tomorrow, we are releasing a movie for the Bone Chiller book. And you guys are like, Bone Chiller, what is that? I would get excited because I know that book. I know the author. I know what the book is. I've had it since I was in high school. I would be hyped for that. But you guys wouldn't because you don't know what that is. You don't know what that book is. If I said there's going to be a Gone book or the Gone book turned into a movie, most of you would scratch your head like, what is that? That's what I mean when they're like, oh, we're making this to get other people involved. But again, only I would be interested in it because it is based on a book series that I loved as a kid. Don't say that just because you produce a movie that everybody's going to go see it. People who don't know about it or those who aren't related. Because if I go and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go watch the Bone Chiller movie, I would recommend it to people who I think would like it. I.e. the boys, because it's kind of like a horror thing. I would recommend it to the boys, even if they never saw it. But if I went by myself, they would know nothing about it, right? The whole point here is when you initially create something, you are posing it to people who know what it is. Just like with video games, when you create a video game, you are trying to target it towards someone. Just like with products. Products are made to target a specific audience of people. Every product is not made for every single person. You get like that's like the best way I can put it. For instance, like Walmart brand soap. You're like, oh, why not just get Dove? Well, Walmart brand soap is for people who don't like spending all that money for Dove. So their target audience are people who don't like spending Dove money. Okay? That product has a audience in mind. They still want to buy soap, but they don't want to pay the amount of money to get Dove. They just want soap. They don't care about the fancy brand names. They just want soap. Cool. McDonald's, they reintroduced the Halloween buckets that we knew fondly as kids. You would say, oh, those are targeted for kids. No, they're not. They're targeted for the adults who grew up with that and who would give their kids that. Because what that means is if I'm going to McDonald's, I'm getting 2 Happy Meals. So my kid can have it and I can have one. Because I remember that bucket fondly. I remember even using it to go trick-or-treating as a kid. So this whole thing of like, yeah, we're just doing it so we can introduce it to other people. No, you have a target audience that you are trying to reach. If other people just so happen to come upon it, then that's great. But the point is, when you say The Last of Us, it perks the ears of people who have played the game. That is who you're advertising to at first, and you're hoping that other people will catch on and be interested in it as well. Just like with the book example, like I said, if you say Bone Chiller, I'm interested, but someone else may not be because they don't know what that is. So you use the trailers and all this stuff to try to get other people's attention. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. How many of us actually sit there and watch ads on YouTube? How many times are you sitting there paying attention to an ad on TV when you're watching something? A lot of times, if I can't skip it, most of the time, I just kind of turn my attention to my phone and wait until it's done. Then I get back to what I was doing. That's typically what we do, right? Long gone are the days where we used to have to sit and wait and sit in front of the TV waiting for ads to play out. We would see all these movies and all this stuff. Because back then, you know, when you would buy a DVD, they would have on the DVD before you would get to the actual like main menu, they would have ads that you would see and you would watch, just like with VHS tapes. That's what they did. They advertised through other movies. But nowadays, all ads are either on Facebook or these dodgy sites that you go to. They're like on the side panel or on the bottom. And you're like, man, I feel like I shouldn't be on this website because all these ads are so obtrusive. And then let's not forget that you also have where you can skip ads on pretty much every, you know, on everything. Like I love watching reels on Instagram because I don't have where there are ads, but I can just swipe up. And the genius part is sometimes you don't know it's an ad until you're like, oh, this is an ad. Then you go. You don't stick around. So again, you are trying to advertise this to people who, number one, don't really like ads or commercials that much anymore. Therefore, you are advertising specifically. So again, as I already stated, how many of us actually sit there and watch ads unless it is something we are interested in personally? I.e., if I'm on YouTube and I see an ad and I'm like, and I see it says 10 minutes long, and I'm like, heck no. As soon as the skip ad shows up, I'm clicking it with fervor. But if it says, yo, this is a trailer for Bone Chiller written by this guy, and I'm like, whoa, hold on, I need to watch this. Because I'm potentially, number one, I'm interested, and number two, I'm ready to go see it. Or it's a video game. We're doing a remaster of Sly Cooper, the Sly Cooper saga, or introducing Sly Cooper 5, and you're like, yo, I need to watch this. Because the problem is, remember, they still make money by running the ad. That's why they have it run to a certain point. Even if you don't watch it all the way, you still watch some of it. You watch some of it. And I can attest to that because here's the deal. when I first started my other YouTube channel, I did the Google Ads thing where it would show like one of my videos, and you guys have seen it too, where at some point you would see some person's YouTube video as an ad, but you would click past it, right? That was the most clicks or views I ever got on a video. Why? Because YouTube counts ads when YouTube counts views once a person watches like past a certain point, right? Let's say it's 10 seconds. You have a 5-minute ad that they can skip at 11 seconds. Guess what? You got a view. It's not a like, but you got a view. So this whole thing is deceptive, saying there are people so interested in our stuff. No, you ran ads. People had no other choice but to watch up until a certain point. They click skip and bam. Okay. But long story short, that's my whole point with these remakes. They are targeted towards specific people for a reason, because those are the only people who are going to know what you're talking about. If you make a live action Sly Cooper movie or a live action Sly Cooper TV show and you advertise it, people are probably going to look at this and be like, a talking raccoon? Ew. Or they'll think it's a kid's show. But we know better. I mean, it could be. But what I'm saying is the whole point is the people who are going to recognize Sly Cooper are the people who are fans of the Sly Cooper franchise, which is a video game that we are fond of. Just like with Jack, if they said Jack as in JAK 4 in bold letters on an ad, I'm sitting there watching it. And I'm being very I will anticipate the game very eagerly. Therefore, the point of the matter is these remakes initially are made for fans of that property. Stop saying that, oh, it's for new fans. That is true. But it is initially made for those who are familiar with the series, because we're the only people who are A, going to give it the time of day, B, who are going to watch the ads and commercials all the way through, and C, are going to be the only ones who are going to recommend it to other people who we think will actually like it. Not saying that other people will not stumble upon it, but for example, I didn't know anything about Stranger Things until people told me about it. It was a great series. We're still waiting for the other season. But the point is that through word of mouth, that show grew in popularity, right? And then people became more, anxious for the new seasons. Like, I'm waiting for the next season to come. I'm ready for it. But I'm still waiting. And I'm eagerly waiting. Right? Same with these remakes. I feel that a remake should only be justified if, A, it is a series that does not have a fan base or a really big fan base. Because I feel like, here's the other thing. Everything has somewhat of a fan base, whether it's big or small. For example, there is a Zatch Bell fan base, right? People who remember the show from back in the day, who have read the manga, and who are current with the manga because Zatch Bell 2 is still going on. But there's a fan base for that, right? That fan base may, be greatly smaller than the Dragon Ball Z fan base. And that's fine. But the point of the matter is there is a fan base, right? So if they came out and said, hey, we are remaking the Zatch Bell anime, everybody who knows what Zatch Bell is going to be hyped, right? And then they're going to be the first ones there to watch it. And if it's good, they're going to recommend it to other people. That's how that works, right? You recommend good things to other people that you know. But initially, you bank it on people knowing what Zatch Bell is. And it could be great. But the point of the matter is, I feel like remakes should only be reserved for shows that unceremoniously were canceled or unceremoniously were cut off in their prime? Why are we wasting so much resources on properties that already have established fan bases and that are doing well financially and doing good? Because granted, that show is only to make Netflix money. Let's just call it what it is. That show only exists to make Netflix money. Just like with Comey Can't Communicate. It is there to keep people watching Netflix. Netflix just introduced ads. So that means, oh, I don't really want to pay a lot of money, but Netflix is still making money off those ads. Right? It all boils down to money. So remakes are useless in the terms of they typically are only used for, and I'm only talking about anime here. I'm not talking about video games because I don't want to open that can of worms. You know, using the Last of Us example is just good because I think that is a good representation of, oh, this is very niche. But originally, like when you hear about it, it's like only the people who know what The Last of Us is in terms of playing the game and knowing the story are who going to be the people who are going to tune in first. But they're inherently useless when it's like it's already an established story. The story is still going on. And there's nothing more you can add to it. That is the third thing. The One Piece remake does approach the earlier season with brevity and supplements that with humor and cutting some things out. Sure, that's cool. But as someone who has watched One Piece since my first episode, I don't need that. Because I'm caught up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need that. And can't say that's for other fans because, again, One Piece already has stuff that is established. And there's nothing more that can be added to it. So, yeah. Like, if they were to say tomorrow, we're going to do a Naruto live action adaptation on Netflix, I'd be like, why? I don't know. Again, those are just my thoughts. Those are just my points. Again, you can agree, disagree. But the point is that for me, remakes are useless unless they are used to bring life to something that was considered dead. If something's already alive, like The Last of Us, and I hate going back to this as an example, but The Last of Us is not old enough to be like, oh, we don't know what that is. Like, we think fondly of it. You get what I'm saying? Like, they just came out with the Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver remastered thing. And I'm very interested in that because that is an old game that I remember playing fondly that I'm like, yeah, that game deserves a remake. Yeah, that is well deserved. Not The Last of Us that has current gen graphics, all this stuff that's going for it and is not even that old. It just got a, what was it? A remaster, remake, whatever it got in video game form. And I'm like, this game just came out. How many ways can you play it? They even tried making a Last of Us multiplayer. And I'm like, this is what companies do. They latch on to this property that has made them money and they just run with it. Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft. Bandai Namco, Dragon Ball. It's almost like you guys can't create anything else because you're afraid to not make money. And tell me I'm wrong. When it comes down to it, companies only care about money and profit. If you run a business, profit should be your main point of achievement. Because a business that doesn't make profit is a dying business, right? Who starts a business to give everything away? Right? So my point with all this is remakes should only be used risky. Use it for older anime. Let's get a remake of Big O. Show it to me. Do it. Make me want it. How about a remake of Ghost in the Shell? Do it. Show it to me. Paranoia Agent. Dead Man Wonderland. Come on, guys. Why are we getting live action remakes when we still need remakes just for the animations themselves? Promise Neverland, season 1, great. Season 2, trash. Because they cut so much stuff from it and they were trying so hard to sanitize it, which I never understand. When you got anime like Berserk, you got anime like Devilman Crybaby that just go off the rails with the stuff that they do. And we're like, oh, we don't want to show kids with guns. And I'm like, bro, have you not seen anime before? Anyway, I think I ranted on long enough. But overall, I think remakes should not be used for already established properties. They should be used to reinvigorate interest in properties that are long past, that ended unceremoniously, and that require that extra push. And not every remake is good either. And that's my other problem too. I'm gonna end it after this point. But not every remake is good and necessarily needed. And I can think of 2 off the top of my head. Me and my wife were watching the Proud Family, Louder and Prouder remake or continuation or whatever it's called. But quote unquote, it was a remake of the original series. My initial thoughts, and even like trying to finish it, was like lazy, disconnected, driven by celebrities, and just boring. Like, I remember when they announced season 2, no one cared. Like when the first season was coming out of Louder and Prouder, and people were like, oh crap, they're bringing back the Proud Family, and people were excited. I ain't hear jack crap after that. Even when season 2 came, hear jack crap about it. So there was no point for it. Rugrats. They remade Rugrats. I remember watching the first episode and I'm like, what is this trash? Who wanted this? Who needed this? Nobody. Nobody wanted it. No one needed it. They just wanted to make it with the opportunity of making money. And again, that does actually clarify assert my rules. The ones that they have to be old properties, they have a fan base, and that could be revigorated. But just because it can doesn't mean it should, because those are examples of bad remakes, where the people who will watch it are the ones who are fond of the original. And because you don't hold the essence of the original, people are going to be like, well, I don't like this. And you cut them off. Because a lot of times we'll go in saying, okay, hey, did you watch the original Proud Family? Yeah, this remake was good. You should give it a watch. On the other hand, we watch it and we're like, yeah, no, this is trash. Don't even waste your time. So, yeah, I'm going to end it there. But guys, again, the next one that comes out should be a joint venture. And then we'll also continue with more gameplay. But like I said, we are not playing Escape the Backrooms for a minute. We need a break from that game. So this is what we're going to do. We're just going to, just do as we can. But viewers, thank you for making it to this point. If you're listening to this on the podcast or podcast provider, whatever it is, please make sure to follow us. Share if there are other people you know who are interested in content like this. And if you're on YouTube, of course, make sure to like, subscribe if you made it to this point, and comment down below what you guys think about. The first part kind of felt more of like a tangent about storytelling and what stakes are and how that ruined Super for me, Dragon Ball for me in the long sense, and just turned me off of it for a very long time. And the second point, what you guys think about anime remakes, not just anime remakes, but let's kind of expand it to video game remakes. I did harp on The Last of Us quite a bit. So want to be fair. What do you guys think? Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Tell me why. But until next time, listeners, peace out.